Welcome back to a video basically giving you the scenario in which Donald Trump ends up in prison and basically, for all intents and purposes, cannot run. And this happens before the nomination convention happens. And we'll base it off of polls that are available today. As you can see, Trump is leading the general election results by 1.2%, which is great. But we also have somebody like DeSantis losing to Biden by 0.3 in the popular vote. Keep in mind that Trump lost the popular vote by about 4 to 5% in 2020. So just keep that in mind. All right, so I filled in a lot of the states that are pretty obvious, just to save time. Of course, we respect the fans, and so basically we have Florida taken in. We also have Ohio, Iowa. If DeSantis loses this, and again, mind you, I hate DeSantis, so realistically that would be a wet dream. But to be honest, he will win these states. So we're already starting off on a floor of 221 electoral votes versus 220 for Biden. So it's a very even election, just looking at this. But what I will say is that DeSantis is operating off of less of a popular vote, so is floor is lower than Trump's even, and the reason is that Trump has more of a diehard fan base that are more likely to go out to vote. Now, what is good for Republicans, and that applies to Ron DeSantis too, is that their mail-in vote operation is a lot more sophisticated this time around, and there's going to be a lot more funding for ballot harvesting and legal census across the country. So I feel like any Republican that goes into the race will do better than Trump did in 2020, insofar as obviously their amount of votes are from dispassionate people higher, right? Like, how did Biden win last time, so to speak? Well, it's only, there's only a debate as to who won, only because of mail in ballots. Well, what are mail in ballots? Well, they're able to have any candidate, no matter how boring they are, to be voted in by whoever is in their party or their allegiance, because, I mean, it's a very easy thing to mail in a vote versus actually spend half an hour in line at the polling place to vote in person in the traditional sense, which is why people like Biden are still in office, whereas people like DeSantis might also have a good shot at winning against Biden head to head if it comes to it. Part of the reason why I'm not doing Nikki Haley for this is also because Nikki Haley is not as palatable to the Trump base. So if we're looking at like some sort of like pseudo Illuminati, like Republican, a bunch of like guys doing coke, and they're like, hey, let's be smart and let's pick DeSantis to unify the party and kind of assuage the Trump people, versus narrative of Nikki Haley being completely distant to that narrative. Okay. Anyway, so to get to the states, North Carolina is going Republican. The reason being is that, like the Democrats aren't spending any money in here, which is indicative that they're going to lose the state. New Hampshire, on the other hand, will go blue. The reason why it's going blue is because the demography is just they're very, very, very lukewarm towards the Republicans, just inherent to their philosophy. It's a way of knowing the states and how they work is the way I come to that conclusion. There's no need to check polls. I mean, it's just the way it is. Now, with the next state, I think it's going to be Georgia. I think Georgia is one that is this is difficult, right? So I think because the suburbs are so big, and a candidate like Brian Kemp did so well, and he's like a person who's a conservative but also not Trumpian exactly, that sort of thing flies really well for some reason in Georgia. So by that logic, I think that Georgia will go Republican in this case. And so again, what's so popular about Georgia? Is it the rurals that keep it Republican, or is it the suburbs that are like the eminent sort of like engorging great orifices that we're talking about here? Gillette County, these places. Okay, well, these places are needing, or is it Gwinnett? Anyway, these places are needing some more of a more palatable message if you want to win it. So I think Trump would win this, but basically DeSantis is a little bit of a better fit. The same goes for Arizona even. I think Arizona also is a place where you have suburbanites that are very much frizzy and picky, and they like to mother hen other Republicans from winning, hence Kerry Lake losing. So there are some Republicans that defect. Yeah, these Jeff Flake types. Well, these people are coming home for DeSantis for sure, because they hate Joe Biden, and they might also hate Trump. But if DeSantis isn't Trump, it doesn't matter if Trump endorses DeSantis, it would still work out. And mind you, if Trump goes to prison and he for a fact knows he can't run for president reasonably, then I'm pretty sure he would endorse the Republican candidate, because I think he can put his ego aside and say, like, okay, look, I cannot run for president. Now, if he is able to run somehow, then that's a different thing. But I'm just assuming that, like, this is like if Trump were to not exist, okay? Like, this is just like, if he's in prison, he can't run. He's not even on the ballot, okay? All right. So I feel like DeSantis would get all of Trump's support, minus some diehards that are like very, very, very niche voters, like these sort of like white people, blue collar, very apolitical sorts. So like, for example, Michigan would go blue in this case. I think Pennsylvania might go blue, and I also think that Wisconsin could go blue. But I also think the election would end up going to Nevada. Here's my rationale. DeSantis, by and large, does not have the blue collar support that Trump has, and there's no comparison for it. He doesn't have the blue collar support. He doesn't have the Rust Belt support in a traditional sense. He doesn't have the white trash vote. He doesn't have the redneck vote like Trump does. But what he does have is the suburban appeal. So he really does have that Marco Rubio 2016 map where it's you win Ohio, you win the swing states from the 2000s. So 2000 and 2004, it was Iowa, it was Ohio, it was Indiana, it was North Carolina, stuff like this, Nevada, Arizona. Okay, so these states are going to go red. And so I think DeSantis would, by the skin of his teeth, win the election and maybe lose the popular vote by, well, half of a percent, 0.3%, something like that. So this is the result. The mandate wouldn't be great, obviously, because he's barely beating a really, really shitty candidate in Joe Biden. But I mean, there's a lot of different layers to assess here. So obviously, when we're talking about this, we have elections that also consist of debates. Debates are probably not going to happen if DeSantis is the nominee. I don't see Biden signing up for that because, first of all, he's obviously Alzheimer's laden, but also, DeSantis is an okay debater. All things considered, I'll give him credit. He beat Newsom, albeit with the truth on his side, but I mean, still, he got the job done. And so I think DeSantis, over the campaign trail, has become a more effective politician. He has no right to say he's anywhere close to a Trump politician level, but he's okay. And that being said, I think that's all you need to win the election. Okay, you just need a generic Republican. And as long as he doesn't have Trump's scandals, and sure, he doesn't have Trump's charisma, but I mean, they balance each other out. And mind you, I think Trump would win the election with like 310 electoral votes, but 270 is exactly what you need to win. And so I think, I think DeSantis would basically have a Bush 2000 sort of victory, and that is a little bit unsatisfactory given the fact that Joe Biden has a disapproval rating of negative 16%, but it is what it is. So this is the election. If Ron DeSantis were to be the nominee at the convention, if Trump were to go to jail for unreasonable things, obviously. So it is what it is. I'll see y'all in the next video. Adios.